Okay, I've got my notes. I'm ready to go. Long story short, I love the Steam controller. This guy, sort of. We'll get to that. I'm a big tinkerer, and I love PC gaming, which gives you that ability. And I'm the kind of guy that whenever I first boot up a game, I go through all the graphic settings, all the options, everything before I even start playing the game, just to fiddle with it and get it to where I want. So anything that lets me tinker, I'm a big fan. Steam Input is basically tinkering for your controls and then some, and I think it's great for a number of reasons, which I'll get into some of that. But I'm also the reason the Steam controller exists. The first thing I want to say is that it fits my hands perfectly. Like it's hard to see, but it's crazy how good it fits my hand, especially for the way I like to play games. I think 3D printing was the best advertisement Valve could have made for this controller. As you can see, I 3D printed one before I was even able to buy one, and that's how I knew that, yeah, it fits my hands great. Now, I don't know what to do with this. I think this is just going to be my Player 2 controller, like when you give your little brother the controller to let him play with you. But this is the actual one. It's a little bit heavier than the plastic model. I don't have my index fingers on the trigger. I like to do double finger here, and when I do that, it gets my two fingers on these buttons perfectly. It's fantastic. The touchpads are in a perfect place for me to hit them without straining my hands. This thing is just great. And I wish more companies would do stuff like that with the 3D printing so you could see that ahead of time, see how it feels in your hands. I do have a couple of nitpicks about the feel and the ergonomics, but it's not really the controller's fault. It's more my pinkies are weird, and they are kind of weak, and I can't use them very reliably on things. Like, I can't really play piano very well if I have to use my pinkies for anything, same with guitar. So I have a really hard time hitting these back buttons on the bottom, because that's where my pinkies sit. I can hit them reliably. The problem is if I squeeze my pinkies, I about half the time end up squeezing my ring finger, which will hit those buttons as well. So it's been pretty cool that I can actually hit the top buttons, because I could not do that on the Steam Deck. I have a Steam Deck. Let me see. This guy right here, and I can't, again, my fingers hit okay, but I can't hit these buttons very well. And when I'm using the Steam Deck, I can't use the touchpads very well. I love all of the options the Steam Deck gives you for input, can't use them. And that was one of my biggest complaints about the Steam Deck, and part of why this controller exists and why I wanted one, is that I can finally use all of those input features, and I can use them docked. I docked my Steam Deck. Did I say that right? Docking. Yes, docking the deck. I do that all the time, and it sucks because I'm trying to navigate desktop mode, and the device is across the room if I'm trying to watch a movie on it or something, right? I have VLC installed on there to watch, movies that I've, legitimately acquired. And I have to walk over to the device to set it up, and then hit play, and then go sit down on the couch. And if I want to pause the movie, I have to go walk over to it, hit the button. This is essentially a remote for the Steam Deck, and it's great. And so, that was the main reason I wanted one of these things. Steam Input ended up being a better reason, but I didn't know that at the time. I'd never really messed with Steam Input. Let's see here. Lizard mode. Another great thing that I knew about from the Steam Deck, because I use that in desktop mode. But now getting to use the Steam controller on Windows, my god, is that fantastic. Using the touchpad as a mouse cursor and then the triggers as left and right click, it's great. I can open up Steam and click on my game and hit play, and then it turns into a controller. I don't have to open big picture mode, because I do prefer regular Steam interface on the PC. Some of the navigation and stuff I just enjoy. I like big picture mode on the couch, but I can use this in regular Steam, no big picture mode, launch my games, Like, I don't have to use the keyboard and mouse to get into the game and then grab the controller. Like, I just grab the controller, sit down, and it's good to go. My god, is that so convenient. And I think that's, like, the main thing that Valve has done with their different hardware is making PC gaming convenient. Like, and that's the whole point of the controller, right? Is to bridge the gap between PC input and controller convenience. And I think they've done that. Like, just straight up, it works so well. And I'm just kind of floored, and it was worth every penny, which I know some people are not happy about the price, and yeah, it's kind of expensive for a controller, but like, I think it was totally worth it. I mean, also, like, a PS5 or an Xbox controller is $70, and you don't get touchpads, or back buttons, or TMR thumbsticks, which are going to last a lot longer than the potentiometer sticks, because I have controllers that are failing already after like a year and a half. I bought the Starfield exclusive Xbox controller, so that came out in, what, 23? And so we're not even 3 years in, and one of the triggers is already failing. I don't even know, like, it's getting stuck. I don't use that controller that often. I don't know how that's happening. Like, $70 for something that fails after 2.5 years, pretty sure this isn't gonna fail that quickly, so I'm willing to pay the extra $30 for that, and touchpads, and back buttons, and gyro, and the capacitive sensors, and the grip set. Like, you're getting a lot, so yeah, I'm not upset about the price. I haven't made a video in a while either. We're gonna be jumping around because my train of thought is horrible. Part of that is, I mean, I just make stupid videos that make me laugh and I think are funny, or that are fun. But sometimes I also want something to say, and I didn't really know what to say for a while. Like, I've played a bunch of games and just didn't feel like I had anything to say in a review, even if it was a comedic one. And the Steam controller, there's a ton of reviews out there that go really into depth. There's, you know, people that'll even tear it down and show you the complete internals of the thing. Great. But I feel like I finally have something I can say that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, and long story short, it's going to be about accessibility. It'll be the last chapter, so if you just want to go to that, great. But what I'm going to do for the rest of this is just kind of walk through some of the games I tried out with the Steam controller, and some of them that I've actually been playing, like, fully with the Steam controller, and just see, like, what I was planning on doing, and what I ended up doing, and how it worked, and just trying to use Steam input to make these games play a little differently. The first game I tried was Balatro. I've never liked the controller support. I mean, it works, there's nothing wrong with it, like, it's deck verified for a reason. But I don't know, it just didn't feel great, and using the touchpad on the Steam Deck, I've never been the biggest fan of either. So, you know, I wasn't sure how to do it. Played Balatro a ton on my phone, ended up buying it there, love it. I think it's so nice on a phone touchpad, or touch screen, which works, you know, really well. That's kind of the only way you can interact with a phone, so it has to work well, right? Or you'd think. So I thought, hey, what about using a touchpad for Balatro on the PC? It's okay. I tried a few different ways. It was the first game I tried with Steam input, so literally my first time ever using Steam input. And configuring it, super easy. I gotta say, Steam input, really nice. You know, I tried a few different things though. At first, I made the right trackpad my cursor movement and clicking. So if I click the trackpad, it is like a mouse click. That was okay, but I kept dragging things around because it's a lot easier to move your thumb on the pad than it is to press on it without moving. So then I just made the trackpad movement, and the other trackpad was my mouse click. Yeah, that worked okay. I even set it up so that if I put my finger on the one joystick, that would activate gyro, and then I can use the... Right, so if I've just got my hand like this, I can just use the controller to be my cursor, and then I can just click with the touchpad. And I kind of like that. I like the combination of having the gyro and using the touchpad for different things. I like the gyro for the bottom of the screen where your cards are, but then when I'm doing a little bit larger movements, like when I'm navigating the shop, I think the touchpad was kind of nice. But it's all up to you. I like the fact that I can do all of those things at once and set them up simultaneously. So, ultimately, I still prefer Balatro on my phone. But if I wanted to play it on the couch, yeah, it's not bad now. The next game I tried was Baldur's Gate 3. I've been playing a lot of this. I'd actually never finished my first playthrough, so I finally sat down, finished playthrough 1, started playthrough 2. So I've probably got 20 or 30 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 on the Steam controller at this point. Originally, I figured I'd use the trackpads for the radial menus. You know, I was kind of sick of smashing the bumpers repeatedly and using the stick to navigate the radials. I figured, let's try and simplify this. So the left touchpad, I turned into a left stick so I can just use my thumb. Let me see. Use my thumb on the touchpad to navigate the game's menu, or the radial menus. And ultimately, I did leave it that way. The clicking on the left touchpad also I turned in so that I click it and that acts as like the A button so that it selects. I don't really do that, but I still have it set up that way, I'm pretty sure. Originally I had the right touchpad as my bumpers, so I would just click left or right to do left or right. That was kind of nice. Ultimately, I just changed the top back buttons to do the same thing, so I can use the bumpers or these buttons here. I ended up just making my right touchpad emulate the right joystick, so the touchpads are just the sticks, because I use the camera controls a lot more than I'm using the radial menus, so I figured, you know, the two sticks are the inputs I'm using the most, so it's nice to just kind of, instead of having to like hold the stick in a direction, I just rest my thumb on the touchpad, and then it's good, and I'm just moving my character, and if I need to move left a little bit, I just shift my thumb ever so slightly. Like, I mean, it's the same as using a joystick, I guess, but it just feels a little more relaxed. And I figure it won't wear out the controller as fast. Not that I'm gonna wear it out. I mean, there's, you know, PS2 controllers that still work just great, but I don't know, it's kind of nice. It feels like a relaxed way to play Baldur's Gate 3, which is nice when you're playing a game that takes dozens of hours for a single playthrough. And it's also nice that I can use the touchpads to navigate the menus, because I can also scroll and do whatever. So, yeah, it ended up being a pretty simple setup for that game, but, you know, sometimes that's what you need. I tried Warhammer Gladius, or what is it? Warhammer 40,000 Gladius Relics of War, I think is the full title. Whatever, Warhammer Gladius will get you there. It's a 4X strategy game, think Civilization, but without diplomacy, and it's the Warhammer universe. Thought, hey, you can mostly play the game with a mouse, so, well, now I've got a mouse and a controller. Let's see what I can do there. It kind of worked. Mouse and keyboard is still faster, but it's definitely playable with the Steam controller. So if I were inclined to do some couch gaming with that, I definitely could. The thing it made me really excited for is actually playing other games, like Civilization, where the controls actually work correctly. So the main problem is, for whatever reason, and I don't know if that's just a me thing, or if it's for everybody who plays the game, but Gladius has a bug where you're supposed to be able to use the arrow keys to move your camera around. It doesn't work. I have to like click and drag with the mouse. I rebound those keys, still doesn't work. Tried it with the Steam controller, doesn't work. So I was really trying to make like a touchpad be my camera, and I just couldn't get it. As much as I tried, wouldn't work. But still, click and drag is not bad. I just hold the trigger, like just hit the trigger to click, and then this is just drag. So it's still pretty nice. You know, it works. So yeah, I could definitely play on the couch. But just, I don't know, it's just kind of annoying the fact that like basic camera controls don't fucking work in this game. Like, you'd think a strategy game, if it was going to have a bug, it wouldn't be with the camera controls. Like, it's kind of a fundamental part of interacting with the game, but, you know, whatever, I'm not a game developer, right? So what do I know? But it does make me excited to try it with things like Civilization, or I don't know, other strat, like maybe even Crusader Kings. I know people have tried Crusader Kings, and I feel like that one would be too involved, but I don't know, I might give it a shot one day. It'd be fun. The next game I tried was Dishonored. I think this is going to be the first of like 3 or 4 immersive sims that are in this list. I figured I'd just do some mild custom controls, like maybe making jump and sprint the back buttons. Ended up really customizing it, and I love it now. I figured one of the things about the game that it doesn't annoy me, but if you're trying to jump or crouch, you have to take your thumb off of the right stick, right? Jump and crouch are face buttons. And so if I want to like turn while I'm jumping, or crouch and strafe and kind of like go around a corner and pivot, you can't do that all at once. And so I thought, hey, let's make those the back buttons, and then I don't have to take my thumb off the stick. I can use both sticks and to do some of those actions at the same time. And I did end up doing that, and it was pretty nice. Which ones did I believe it was, I ended up doing jumping and crouching as my back buttons. I think originally I had it set up for sprint, but that's still on the left stick, so it's jumping and crouching are my back buttons. The touchpads, I didn't think I would use, ended up being the best part of it. Although jumping and crouching on the back buttons was awesome, but the touchpads were nice because one of the things you have to do if you've played Dishonored, if you want to lean, you have to hold, and you're playing on a controller, you have to hold the top face button and then use the left stick left and right to lean left and right. Which also means you can't like look around and do stuff, right? Like both your fingers are being used for this, and it's just like, it's not bad, but I'm not a big fan of it. You know, like Prey tried it differently where the bumpers where you're leaning, and that's kind of, it's more convenient, but it also takes more inputs in a way. So what I did was I turned the left touchpad into leaning. Touching the left of the left touchpad, it is a multi-step process, so it hits the Y button and then it's left on the left stick. And then if I hit right, it's the Y button, or the top face button, and the right on the left stick. So just hitting the left touchpad or the left or right on the left touchpad will lean me in that direction. It basically is not a macro, but it's just like a set of commands to pull off the leaning. So I've turned leaning into just a single tap. So convenient, so nice. I never have to use the top face button again, essentially. It's great. After realizing that that worked and I could set up like a multi-stage effect, the right touchpad, tapping the right touchpad is acting as my bumper that opens your radial menu with like all of your items. And then the way it works in Dishonored is when you open the radial menu, you like hold the bumper to open the radial menu. And then, actually it's a left bumper, but whatever. And then you use the stick to select the thing that you want, and then when you let go of the radial menu, it activates the thing that you've highlighted. So with this, I just tap the touchpad, it opens the radial, I can use the touchpad to highlight the thing and then let go and it selects. So if I can just remember the position of things in the radial menu, I can just flick on the pad and it selects it. So instead of being locked to like 4 quick slots, I essentially have every button as a quick slot because it's just a matter of remembering where in the radial menu it is. I have streamlined Dishonored's controls so well, it plays so much smoother, and it wasn't a convoluted or cumbersome experience before. I played so much Dishonored, never had complaints with it. Like, one of my favorite games ever, like top 3 favorite games ever. But like streamlining it even more is insane. It's so nice now in a way that I didn't know it could be. The next game I tried was Thief Gold. I wanted to do a couple of things with this. Obviously, Thief Gold did not have native controller support. Of course, it took me long enough to make this video that Thief Gold just got added to GOG's preservation program, which now has native controller support, and Night Dive also announced they're remastering Thief, which is releasing later this year and will have native controller support. So ended up being a moot point, but it was a fun test and it still applies to other games. I used the offline installer from GOG, which is where I own Thief Gold. So I installed that So it's the GOG version of Thief, filtered that into Steam as like a non-Steam application, but launched it through Steam, which means I can use Steam input on a non-Steam game. And essentially I just bound all the controls of the thing, so like my left joystick is WASD, you know, spacebar is the bottom face button, that kind of thing. I did use the 2 touchpads as radial menus though. I set up, because you have, 16 quick slots. You have like 1 through 8, and then like F1 through F8 are quick slots in that game. And it's nice because they're broken up evenly, as like 1 through 8 are like weapons, and then like the other 8 slots are items like potions and things. So I just bound them to radial menus on like both of the touchpads, and it worked pretty decently. You know, it wasn't like perfect. I'm still waiting for Night Dive's version more than anything, because I'm sure the controller support will be great there. But the fact that I was able to take a non-Steam game and use the Steam input fully with no issues is awesome. Like, that's fantastic. Like, that's so... I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling, right? I also own a few games on GOG that I don't own through Steam, like Stalker, the original Stalker, and I guess I have the Enhanced Edition, which has controller support, but if you want to play the original version of Stalker, I could bind my controls through Steam input. I have BattleTech on GOG, which I could use Steam input for if I wanted. I mean, that game I think has controller support already, but like, you get the point. I can take any of my GOG games and get Steam input working on them. It's nutty. Like, it's just so cool to me. So then I tried another game which has controller support, but which is System Shock, the remake that Night Dive did. So not the original version, but like the new one from a couple of years ago. It was actually the game that made me really excited to use Steam input on the Steam controller. I was also playing it when the Steam controller released, or when the release date was revealed, but you know, it was only a week difference. I originally tried playing it on handheld, and it sucks, because the text is super hard to read. Like, even on my monitor, you know, which is, I don't know, 20 some inches, like, the text can still be hard to read. And part of that's the way that the text, you know, it's like bright neon green text filtered through chromatic aberration or some shit. It's just hard to read as text in a game. And the controller support's not that great. Like, it definitely feels like a game that's meant to be played with the keyboard and mouse. Things like the inventory aren't super fun to navigate on a controller. And also, trying to do things quickly. Like, one of the fun things about System Shock is the fact that your inventory is live, so you can just fully navigate your inventory in the heat of combat while still fighting. Now, it's a little different in the remake than it is in the original, but like, the original System Shock, left click is shoot, right click is interact. Actually, I think that's the same here. But it means you can literally be interacting with your inventory while you're shooting your gun. It's really fun. And so losing that kind of takes away from the System Shock experience, so I was trying to see if I could preserve that with the controller. It wasn't great. Like, long story short, I was trying to do mostly inventory navigation, so, but it just, I tried a couple of different things, like using the touchpad as a mouse, using gyro, try some combination of things, and like, they all worked, but none of them ever felt great. And it's just the kind of game that's better to just play with a keyboard and mouse. Like, I have a Bluetooth, or actually they're Bluetooth and like dedicated. They have a dongle. You know, I'd rather just plug those into my, like, dock my Steam Deck to my TV, and then just plug those into the USB ports, and then play wirelessly with the keyboard and mouse. Like, that would just be more convenient, ultimately. So it kind of sucks, but like, hey, it was cool. The next game I tried, and this is the second to last one, I believe. Holy shit, that's a lot of notes. Yeah. Okay. My favorite game ever, Oblivion. Or Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I've been playing this game since it came out, and one of the things I was most excited for with the Steam Deck was all the inputs was like, hey, I can finally play Oblivion with a controller on PC, like the PC version with a controller, because it doesn't have native controller support. That works great, and mods are, like, never worked great for it as far as I remember. And I just like, hey, I don't want to have to rely on a mod to make my controller work. But then Oblivion Remastered happened, has full controller support, and it even improved other stuff and the visuals, and damn, like, well, never mind, have no need for it. Oblivion Remastered did it. Oh wait, except the performance is shit, and they only updated it twice, and every time they updated it, my performance got worse. And then it's been over a year and they haven't updated it again. And also, it's like 125 fucking gigabytes of storage. That's crazy. That's over 10 times the storage of Oblivion, like, original. Like, that's just insane. So, yeah. So I was like, oh, well, I don't need the controller support for the original because, oh, never mind, I still need controller support for the original. Yeah, it works alright. I mean, it was mostly, again, just rebinding, like, the left stick is WASD type shit of just, like, every input's a specific key on your keyboard. It was kind of nice, though, to set up some radial menus so that I can have a few different commands. So I think I have, like, resting and something on, I don't remember, but I have, like, the radial menu set up. My back buttons are, like, quick save and quick load. One of the radial menus has the tilde key so that I can open console commands, and it doesn't work on Windows, but with SteamOS you can just hit, like, Steam X and open the keyboard. So, like, I can use the touchpad to open the console command and then use the SteamOS command to open the keyboard, so I can literally type in console commands with my controller. It's crazy. I love it. It's so good. There was one annoyance with this whole thing, which is that some menus you activate with space, some menus you activate with left click, or like some things get activated with left click versus spacebar. This is not an issue in Oblivion Remastered with the controller support, but when you're binding specific keys to specific buttons with Steam input, it means you gotta remember, do I need left click or spacebar to activate and then to hit the right key? It really threw me off at first, but I kind of got used to it after a minute. I would still fumble it, but it was never that big of a deal. The only issue was just if I was trying to activate something and I accidentally swung my weapon. Thankfully, I never did that on an NPC. But, like, yeah, that would suck if you fuck that up and you're like, well, now I have to load my save and it's been 2 hours since I saved, because that's how everybody plays Bethesda games, right? Okay, and the last section, which is also the last game I tested, is about accessibility. So this is the main thing that excites me about the Steam controller. And the easy illustration I have for this is one-handed control schemes, right? Everybody talks about Steam input for how it's customizable and you can make it do whatever control scheme you like, and that's great, and I love that. But I love the fact that it means, especially with the ability to macro buttons or turn keys into hotkeys or shift modes or whatever, just because of the versatility of Steam input, it means people who have different needs for their control schemes can still play games now with the Steam controller. So, and this probably won't work for every game. You know, certain genres will be better, like Baldur's Gate with turn-based combat would definitely be easier than, like, a Call of Duty where you need really fast reflexes. But I set it up with Knights of the Old Republic. It's a game that doesn't have a lot of controls, and a lot of the controls are kind of redundant. Like, every menu, like your journal and your quest tab and your inventory all have different menu, or different keys to activate them, but you can get to them from each other, so you really only need one of those keys bound to anything. So I made a one-handed control scheme for Knights of the Old Republic. It's literally just, I mean, I made it a little more sophisticated than I ultimately started, but the mouse pad is or the touchpad is a mouse pad, right? So it moves your mouse, and the trigger is your mouse click. This effectively accomplishes 90% of what you're gonna need, because you can also just, there's all kinds of icons on your screen to open the other submenus. So, like, realistically, you could get away with probably just using that and then, like, the joystick for movement, which is what the joystick does. But you can also click on the ground to move your character, so, like, the joystick movement and then the touchpad and trigger as your mouse is effectively good enough. I did set it up to have a little bit more than that, and my notes shifted. Okay. The bumper will pause your game, since that's a common thing that you do, because it's turn-based combat, but also combat by default will pause whenever it starts or an enemy sees you or something. The side face buttons are Q and E, which will let you select between targets, and in the menus, such as your inventory and your journal, it switches between the different tabs, so like journal, quest, inventory type thing. The upper button face is your map. It seems, in my experience, to be a common one that I would use, so I figured that would be a good one to have dedicated. And then the bottom button is your stealth toggle, to toggle stealth mode. I figured that was probably also maybe common, depending, like, if you're playing that kind of class. The other modes, like switching your party leader and, like, turning on solo mode, they seem to be far less utilized in my experience. I don't know how other people play the game, but I've played this game like a dozen times, and I've used those like once or twice a playthrough. And again, you can still use those with the mouse because there's a button on the screen that says like select, switch party leader or activate solo mode. That's pretty much the whole control scheme. Also, this will pause, or it should. And then you're like, if you're thinking, hey, like, that's really cool, so, like, it's a one-handed control scheme, and it totally works. But, hey, what if, I'm left-handed, or, like, I have only my left hand to use, or whatever? I mirrored it. So, again, mouse, trigger is mouse click, movement, switching targets left and right, top is map, down on the D-pad is stealth, pause. You've got it all on both sides of the controller. If you wanted to use this control scheme as somebody with both hands, like, yeah, then I guess you could use them too, right? Like, you can use either one of these as your mouse cursor. So, and it works. Like I said, probably not a feasible way to play a lot of games, but the fact that you can set it up is more the point I'm trying to make, is that Steam Input has the versatility to give you these options. And this is all without even using, right? We got 4 back buttons, right? If you have one hand, you still have back buttons here, right? The way I hold a controller, like, you could use those back buttons, again, as mode shifts or macros or whatever. So I didn't even use all of the options. I didn't use gyro. I didn't use the capacitive touch for things. That's a pretty simple control scheme that only uses some portion of the inputs. So I think it just shows that it's got a lot of flexibility, and that's, again, the thing that makes me excited for accessibility, is that, it's great that accessibility is a thing that companies think about, right? Both PlayStation and Xbox have their, like, accessibility controllers. I don't know why I was doing air quotes, that is what they are, but they're big. And I get that they're customizable for whatever your needs may be, and that's awesome, but they're big, and, like, I love that the idea of the Steam controller can meet accessibility needs in a controller form factor. I can throw this in a backpack. I've done that and taken it with me when I was traveling. Like, if you have to travel, but you have this big bulky controller for your accessibility needs, that kind of sucks, right? And that might be what you need, and that's cool then. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't use that, but if you can use a regular controller to meet your accessibility needs, I'm so glad that there's an option for you now. Like, because that's just so convenient and nice. And so that's the thing that makes me most excited, and I hope we get to see more of that, is people finding ways to make the controller work for them in, I'm gonna say edge cases, which seems kind of a shitty way to say that when we're talking about, like, disabilities, but, like, to find ways to make it work for you if you have a sort of atypical or, like, non-traditional way of interacting with games. And I'm not an expert in Steam Input. I started using Steam Input when I got the controller. I'd never touched it before, even though I've had a Steam Deck for a couple of years now, right? So I've only been messing with it for a few minutes, and already I'm seeing how versatile it is, and I'm messing with it in ways that I didn't think I would. You know, and I don't have accessibility needs like that. I mean, yeah, my pinkies are kind of not great, but like, you don't really use them for games, right? So, you know, but even me without accessibility needs is seeing how accessibility needs can be met, right? So I'm just, you know, it also makes me think how somebody who might need to have accessibility needs met is going to be thinking about this controller and what that's going to, how that's going to come off to them, or what they're going to figure out with this thing. So yeah, that's the long and short of it, is like, I love this controller. It's like genuinely the perfect controller for me. Like, I have zero complaints. The battery life also incredible. The puck is great, but like every reviewer's talked about that, how good the puck is and the battery life and all that. Like, I don't need to go on and on about all that, but like, it's great. It's genuinely great. I have zero complaints about this controller. I absolutely love it. And that's it. So thank you for watching. If you took nothing else away from this video, I hope the accessibility section is something that you watched, because I'm Jesus, I'm genuinely passionate about that. I love the idea of increasing accessibility in games, and so I hope that you watched at least that section and saw what I had to say there. Hopefully it gave you some ideas. Maybe it didn't, who cares? You know, take what you want from it. And yeah, thanks.